the Big Ten office as far as to trying to get that play taken out and trying to void the Wisconsin win. Was that realistic? No. But ultimately, he tried to do whatever he could, and he's still causing a stir about it. Here's an excerpt from the article that says, the NCAA did tweak its official rulebook to send the message that this type of gamesmanship will be punished going forward. Call it the Fickle rule. Big Ten officiating coordinator Bill Carlo went over the rule Tuesday when asked about it, and without mentioning the Illinois and Wisconsin game, added, quote, we just had a situation that we thought we'd define it a little better. We just wanted to clarify that. Everyone knew that you technically deceived someone by switching jersey numbers and not reporting it. I'll try to see and find out. Maybe the text line would have a good idea of this. Like, what was the official rule? I don't know that it was against the rules previously, but it is now been stated that it will be punished and penalized going forward. So I ask you guys this. Do you have a problem with Bret Bielema still riding this thing out, still holding a grudge, still making this a thing when, I mean, there were other ways that Illinois lost that game, one. Number two, Illinois was not a good football team last year. Like, the difference between that win and making it to the Ramen Noodles Bowl, whatever it was going to be, the lowest of the level bowls. I know it's not a real bowl. A 6-win bowl. Like, I think that you could look at it from a number of different angles, say, all right, Illinois, number one, you shouldn't have blown that game. There are reasons why you blew that game beyond this. Number two, you're talking about the difference of a 5-win and 6-win football team. On the other side of it, like beating Wisconsin 2 times in a row, I get where Brett's coming from on that. What do you guys make of it? I definitely want to hear your stance. Should this be in the rear view and not talked about anymore? Or are you okay with some kind of ongoing bad blood, Bret Bielema having a grudge?
It seems a little stretched out too long for Bret. Like, we're at 2024 Media Day now, and this happened in 2023. We're not on talking terms with Luke Fickell anymore because of this play. Bret's always had this where he gets really fired up and passionate and angry about officiating. We saw it in that Michigan game in 2022 on that pick play that no flag was thrown, and Bret tweeted right after the game something about some sarcastic tweet about how we'll practice better to defend that one next time, and then like a month later tweeted, I wish we could play Michigan again with fair refs or something like that. So he's always kind of been a salty, and I like it. I like the fire and the passion to not just accept when your team gets screwed, for your head coach to actually call out the screwing that his team had against them and to show that fire. I like that, but I feel like he is one to hold grudges a little too long maybe, and I don't know. I feel like sometimes Bret, to me, goes a little over the top with some of this stuff where, like, you just got to move on at the end of the day. There's 12 games in a football season. In every close game, there's so many different plays that could happen. I'm as upset as anybody when Illinois gets jobbed by the officials or I think a call is blown. But even I am not – I forgot that play even happened by now. Like, right, you know, and there was so many other chances for Illinois to get a 6th win last year. Now, that game hurt. But like you said, Wisconsin marches down and scores on you twice at the end of the game. And I feel like now, sitting here July 25th or whatever the date is, let's start focusing on 2024. And I think that's – I don't know if I necessarily support there being like a no-talking relationship now, and he's going to hold that against Wisconsin for the next 10 years. That's a little far for me.
Jimmy, as an objective, no dog in the fight observer, what do you make of it?
Well, I wouldn't quite say that because I am very anti-Wisconsin, especially with on the football side of things. Purdue has not defeated Wisconsin in quite some time. Mm-hmm. So, I could see when you have a chance to beat a team like that and it kind of slips through your fingers like that, it's very difficult. But if there was no rule broken, and again, we're talking about something that happened 9 months ago, I think you gotta let it go, Bret. I really think that this is, they're a bigger fish to fry. You got a season coming up here, and you don't even play Wisconsin this year, so I would kind of just let this one go. If you don't want to talk to Fickell, I guess that doesn't really concern you much, but I think that gives you kind of a bad look if you're still pouting about this.
It's petty, right? It definitely seems that way. And again, I definitely can see from the side of like, certainly let it go. There are other reasons you lost, so on and so forth. I'll say this though. I've been thinking about this today, and let me give you the stat first and foremost. As Jimmy mentioned, like Purdue has had a long history of not beating Wisconsin. Illinois, even though they beat them in 2022 in dominant fashion, it led to the firing of Paul Chryst. We had the Ben Brust clip of you lose to that crap, program, and that was something that Illinois reveled in. Like that was a moment of, we thought, taking a step up as a program, especially just that season in general, what that meant to beat Iowa and Wisconsin, teams that you hadn't beaten in so long and rarely have beaten over the last 2 decades. So I get where Brett's coming from, where you're trying to change over the expectations, change over what these results have been against certain programs, and to have beaten Wisconsin back-to-back years, a place that they've had things to say about Brett when he left there, and then obviously crashed and burned at the end of his Arkansas tenure. And you should have never left. I admittedly always wondered why he did, other than money, which I certainly can't knock a guy for taking more money in a new challenge. But Illinois has beaten Wisconsin 5 times since 1992. So as somebody who was born in the very early 90s, I grew up, I knew that Ron Dane was at Wisconsin and that Illinois rarely ever beat them. Of course, when you had Kurt Kittner in the early 2000s, you beat him a couple times. You beat him the year of Juice Williams and Aurelius and Richard, a big game here against a ranked Wisconsin team in 2007. And then a long 10-plus losing streak after that. You beat him in 2019, that walk-off field goal. Forgive me for forgetting the name of the kicker that made that. Do you know?
That was McCord, I believe.
Was that? Yeah, McCord. I think that's right.
I think he blacked out after that for a little bit, he said.
And then you have the 2022 win. So when you have a team like that and knowing the history, James McCord, 39-yard field goal. Good memory there, Jimmy. That you want that matters. That matters to Brett. But what I was getting at is I thought of it this way. Do you remember the Illinois and Iowa basketball handshake line in Iowa City?
Yes.
That could be viewed as something that was a little petty on Illinois' side. Like they lost that game. It was a hard-fought ball game, and they didn't like that Iowa maybe didn't let off the gas at the end. They were showboating a little bit. They could have dribbled some things out. Instead, I think Wieskamp broke away and had a dunk, and I know obviously you maybe had some trash talk from it'd be shocking if Connor McCaffrey had something to say, right? But Illinois then caused a scuffle in the handshake line. Jamal Walker, Chen Coleman, those guys. At that time, it could be viewed, especially outside of Illinois circles, as, boy, that was kind of petty by Illinois. Like you played hard, you had a good game, you're a team that's coming up, you're different than you were 3, 4, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Like, just take your loss, you get another crack at them next time, those type of things. But it brewed up a rivalry, and I appreciate that. Obviously, what it turned into, the Kofi Cover and Luka Garza battles and everything. If this leads to Illinois and Wisconsin, unfortunately, we don't get to see that in 2024. If this leads to those programs having some friction, having some more juice to that next game in 2025, having Illinois their eyes set on a program that they've been looking up at all this time. I'm not saying that they're on Wisconsin's level just because there's a feud here. But you know where I'm going with this? Like I think if that's part of what is happening here, now Illinois is going to have to hold up their end of it and have a decent season in 24. Otherwise, they're going to be a bottom feeder in the Big Ten versus Luke Fickell and company, probably going to take a step forward this year, and then we'll see where they are at in 2025. And I'm not saying that's what Brett is intentionally doing here, but if that is going to be part of the result of this, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with some pettiness leading to some more juice around a game that, if I'm Illinois, I want the Wisconsin game to be one where they hate us and we hate them. You know, we've got a little bit of bad blood. If you've got that with Northwestern, I know it's fine because Northwestern's beaten you a lot more times than you've beaten them in the last 15 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, with that program versus some others, I'm good with that angle of it as I thought about that today.
It's a very interesting point. I just think it's the worst time for something like that when
Yeah.
all of a sudden maybe Illinois and Wisconsin will play once in the next 3 years.
Yeah.
I think that actually
True.
is what is lined up. They play in 2025 and not
that stinks.
24 or 6. So I would question, like, is this really still going to be the storyline leading up to that 2025 game? Like,
Probably
oh,
not.
Here we go. They're finally meeting since that 2023 game in which both Illinois finished 5-7 and Wisconsin finished 6-6. I can't wait for this one.
Yeah, Wisconsin's worst season in like 15 years.
I don't know. Maybe it will, just because maybe Brett Bielema won't talk to Luke Fickell until then, and then we'll have that storyline going. But I don't know. It's a little different dynamic than in basketball, where you knew you're going to have 2 Illinois-Iowa games every year. You knew there was
That's
going to be a
fair.
couple postseason battles. You knew that those 2 teams were 2 of the better teams in the Big Ten at the time, with 2 of the better players in the country. And, like, we're just not going to get that unless there's some, unless both teams are on the come up next year and there's some big game for. But then again, like, it's not like these 2 teams are really going to be competing for Big Ten championships anytime soon either. Wisconsin, much greater chance than Illinois. It's really just going to be 2, maybe a slightly above average Wisconsin program versus a slightly below average Illinois program doing battle in 25. I don't feel like there's not going to be as much of that dynamic in football. Although I like the point. I wish that it was more of that. I wish there was a game coming up in October of this year to get fired up about, because I was going to say earlier, I'm upset. My biggest reaction to this story is I'm upset that these 2 teams aren't playing this year, because that would I'd pay to see Petty Brett all week in his pregame media availabilities heading into that Wisconsin game, knowing that Illinois is going to treat that one like it's the biggest game of their season type of thing, and we just don't get that this year. I wonder if that'll still be the case 2 years from now. I doubt it a little bit.
Can we come up with a feud, a slight something with a team that Illinois is actually going to play?
Well,
Maybe Ryan Walters. There's always that, right?
yeah, there's always that. I was going
Did
to
Walters
That's a
say
trophy-
something
that's a
juicy
trophy
after
game,
that
though,
win or
too.
something? Yeah, there's that. But
And the proximity
yeah,
of the schools. And you got me here.
and the
involved,
whole like
stirring it up.
Yeah, that has prolonged and kept it fresh in our minds for sure. Didn't Walters?
there was some back and forth when Walters first took the Purdue job, like claiming the success of the defensive back room for
Yep.
Illinois in 2022.
Yep.
Back and forth where that felt like it was really going to brew over. And then, of course, Purdue dominates Illinois last year as a 4-win team. So I just
Now they have Reggie Love and Andy Boo, right?
that's right. Yeah, they took a couple coaches. Yeah, that's probably the closest you're going to get is Illinois-Purdue. It'd be nice if Illinois wasn't dominated by them for some reason in football and basketball and everything recently.
Except baseball. You guys got that.
We did get that. Yeah.
Nice little Big Ten title for Dan Hartleb
Yeah,
and
see, there
company.
you go. There's always something.
So, I'll be interested to see what that basketball matchup looks like this year.
Oh, yeah,
They've been
that'll-
good battles. It's just Purdue has won them for the most part here of late.
But they're always close. Other than one game I can think of.
Yeah.
In the last 3 years wasn't close. But the other, you have a double overtime game. You have a couple Illinois near comebacks.
Yeah.
You got last year's game in Champaign, which was a good one. So
Both those at Mackey, though, it felt like Purdue dominated for 3/4 of those games.
yeah, and then just took the foot off the gas.
And just amazed that Illinois had a chance, like within a possession, right, of both games at the end.
Yeah. I mean, it was, and I could see it coming. For at least the second time, I could see it coming, just mostly because of the year before. I was like, we're not gonna hit every single three. We're gonna start missing some, and this might get rough when you have Fletcher Loyer guarding Damask 1-on-1.
Yep. One last note on this Illinois-Wisconsin storyline. So there's a quote that I want to read from Luke Fickell. He does, apparently when he gets asked about this, he takes the opportunity to point the finger at Michigan and say that's far more of a scandal, far more egregious, far bigger of a thing here. And the change of having headsets now and helmets is a far bigger adjustment and something that the Big Ten has taken very seriously, as opposed to this numbers thing, to use his line. So let me read you this. The numbers thing was as unintentional as anything I've ever done. Okay. Where something else was pretty intentional, talking about the Michigan thing. But yet we make a bigger deal out of this. Yes, I think it's comical, but I think that's a little bit of our world today. Let's avoid the real issue here. Let's make sure we make some corrections. Otherwise, let's put a headset in the helmets now so we can basically say we washed our hands.
To act like the national scandal of the Michigan thing was not treated as a bigger deal of something that I am just now hearing about today, 9 months later.
Right.
Like, was anybody outside of Illinois and Wisconsin aware of this?
I don't think anyone knew this was a thing other than
And this was like the Michigan thing was a national headline in sports, not just college football, in all of sports. So I think that's a little I think that's not really a good.
Not an apples to apples comparison.
That's probably a bad thing to say. I don't think that was the brightest move by Luke there, but oh well.
You're right, Kyle. I wish these teams played this year, and that would be the next domino that would allow it to have that juice. Where a year from now, and then you're sitting